Greetings. We're back again at Hitman's Haven Podcast. You have Tazim and Trey, and we are at NFL 2024 season, week 15. Believe it or not, it's been a fun ride. We have some interesting activities going on throughout the league, as it looks like from the NFC standpoint, it's going to go right up till the end. So I'm not sure if anybody will be resting anybody else when you're fighting for both division crowns as well as getting into playoffs at all. Right now, the Packers sit at the 6th seed in the NFC. And of course, there's some interesting activities out in the NFC West, in the NFC South, and of course, what we control ourselves for the rest of the season as it relates to what goes on. When you look at how things are stacking up relative to league-wide, is there anything in there that's of interest to you in terms of what the teams are doing?
Yeah, it's who's going to close out the season strong. In the NFC West, it's been kind of, to start the season, it was all right, who's going to stop losing the games that count? For a while, Arizona looked like they were, on a good track. Then we kind of beat them up. They haven't really been able to regain that momentum that they had. We know the San Francisco 49ers have dealt with injuries and close losses all year long. It looks like it just might be too little, too late for them. That's just the reality of the situation out there with the season they've had. And then you have, the Rams, who dealt with, again, injuries early and are really picking it up late. Puka Nacua has come back and it's taken off week in and week out. That defensive line they have is a bunch of young guys, but they're getting a ton of pressure and they're making it really hard for teams. So, can they overtake the Seahawks? Can we, as in Green Bay, help them take over the Seahawks starting this Sunday night? We'll see what happens. But all these games matter right now because it's going to come down to the wire in terms of playoff seeding. There's still room in the NFC North to win the division. For us, although our chances would be really, really low right now, would require a lot of help that we're not likely to get because people are still playing for something. And the Vikings still have a chance to move up or down, given what happens in these last couple of weeks. So going to be an interesting road to the end, see what happens and, see where things lie.
And I think the main part of that is that the teams are pretty much all fighting for something. And what is really exciting about this, if someone is an old NFL fan or new NFL fan, this is a season that tells you that there are no bad teams in the NFL. If anyone ever tells you all that again, then watch this season, the team that is supposed to be the bottom, and watch how they play against the teams who are supposed to be at the top, and you'll understand that you got to come every week ready to play, because it can come down to the final play in the final drive of any game, and you got to come with it the entire game. Now, if we look at our Packers, in my opinion, this is just about them doing what they're supposed to do to close out the season. Because what you want to do is go into the playoffs on an upward trajectory and playing your best football. And this is where we need to bring it together. We need our top players, specifically on defense, where we've had the most inconsistency, to start playing more consistent. This is where we need to bring this thing together, because if we're going to get to where we want to get, which is holding up the Lombardi in February, then that's going to require our top players playing like they're our top players. And we need all three phases to come together at the same time, which we've had some good games, but I don't know that we can say that we've really put them all together for an entire game yet. And that's okay up to this point, because again, the time that we need it clicking is going into and through the playoffs, because you can have as great a record as you want in the regular season, but if you show up at the playoffs the same way Dallas did last year and the way the Eagles did last year, then you'll get your ass kicked and you'll be ending your season as quickly as you elevate it to that great regular season record. And that's not what we want to do. We want to close this thing out strong. And speaking of that, we've had quite a couple of weeks here, and now it's time to basically rebound from having, it was a tough game. It was obviously one that I won't say we should have won. We could have won the game. When you don't win, I think that it's kind of malfeasance to say, well, we should have. No, and then you should have done it. If you should have won, then you would have won. But I think we could have won that game. There were opportunities to win it, and of course, we didn't get that done. And obviously, before that, which we haven't had a full program, a full show since also our last game against the Dolphins. If you look at how we were able to come out and put it together against a team that's supposed to be the fastest team in the league, and there were a lot of stats, but again, that's all great for fantasy football. What we're there for is to score touchdowns and win games. But when you look at these last two games, what we put on film and where our next steps are relative to finishing out this season, what did you see offensively? And we can kind of put both of them together. What did you see offensively from our end in terms of how we, turned out in those games, T?
I mean, offensively, I feel like we have the pieces we need to go as far as we'd like to go. We've seen every level of the offense click in ways that a lot of NFL teams don't have the ability to get to that point. Reference the Lions game, we were able to put up 30 plus points, even though we waited till almost the end of the second quarter to start. And we only ran, I think, 40 something plays over the course of the whole game. We're right at 50. So if you're talking about being able to get on the field, generate plays, part of that is the defense getting off the field and getting the ball back to the offense with more opportunities, ending long drives for the opposition. You like what the opportunity you have in front of you. You like the guys that you put out there. And if the O-line is able to have better games than they had against the pressure package that the Lions brought, I think you got to be feeling good about where things are moving into this late phase of the season and into the postseason. You have weapons that can compete against anyone. You have guys that can compete in the passing game, shallow, intermediate, and deep. You have a run game that's extremely complementary, that can take off at any point in time, that can set the tone early in the game. They can finish the game off with long drives, 4 or 5 yards of carry. You have a running back who's capable of doing that. And you have an O-line that's shown the ability to hold up in both ends. They just had a bit of an off day in Detroit last week. So I think everything that you've seen, you have to like where things are at. You just have to put it all together at the right time. That's the part of it, right? That's the shoulda won, coulda won. The opportunity is out there. It's certainly not a roster issue, a talent issue. It's can you do it when it matters the most? And that's what we're getting ready to see.
And I think that what I would say that the half game of an anomaly from our offensive line is something that I'm not overreacting to. I think it's interesting when you look, and whether it's the media or the fans or whomever, you look at this team and you say, where are we relative to what our expectations were at this point in the season, and even the prospects moving forward in terms of our goal? What was the ultimate objective of this season? And in my opinion, I don't see in any way where we're off track. What I see is the ability to continue developing. There are still some evaluations in terms of we need to see what players are able to fill in competently and really confidently when we are missing a player, for instance, like Ja in the secondary, who is a huge piece of really working with that front to get pressure and then to be able to have successful coverage on the back end. And even how do we operate at the linebacker position when we are missing Cooper? Because quite frankly, he is our highest level, in my opinion, instinctual linebacker when it comes to coverage, even in terms of reading and blitzing. He just has a different speed in which he plays and in which he reacts, to where I don't see the middle of the field being as open as it has been the last couple of games if he is in the game. Yes, we gave up a lot of yards over the middle of the field, in particular to Miami, and then it really seemed like the Lions got what they needed when they needed it over the middle of the field in some crucial situations when we really need to stand up. So for me, like you mentioned, we have the pieces, whether you're talking about on the defensive side or the offensive side. Now, where you and where we are now in terms of this part of it, when you're looking at our offense, I don't think we can get more balanced in terms of what we need and to be coming into form at the right time with Jordan Love. Look, this young man started out the season right at the end of game one with an injury that we didn't even know if he was going to be able to come back. Obviously, he came back and then suffered another injury. So we missed him for 2.5 games. So when you look at him really getting going, getting in sync with his guys, of course, part of that was that time away. It's now getting the reps, getting going in the game, getting the timing, like you said, with the short, with the intermediate, with the deep ball, which has really been coming into form with his timing, and Christian with that deep ball. It really does seem like he has a lot of chemistry with Romeo when Romeo is in the game in that short to mid intermediate area, particularly on a number of the slants and the out routes. So not having Romeo the past couple of games, I think that might have showed a little bit, except for the fact that the last game we did get Wicks stepping up a bit. So we can see what we have the ability to be in spurts. We cannot go an entire half, though, like we did against the Lions and get behind the way we did. Can't have the mistakes like the fumble with Christian. We need to come out firing on all cylinders from the start, especially against the top team in the National Football League, which right now is the Lions. And we had every opportunity to do what we needed to do. We just didn't get it done on that occasion. But again, I don't understand all the overreactions as if this team is not on pace to be exactly what the expectation was for them to be. They're still the youngest team in the NFL, but they're still also one of the most talented teams in the NFL. And I know I touched on mine relative to the defense. What do you have as it relates to the defense, what we showed, and then what kind of, like I mentioned, what do you see that needs to really start moving?
Yeah, I think it's critical situations. It's you get an offense in second and long, third and long. You got to be able to get off the field. Teams get in the red zone, but you get them backed up in the red zone. They have a penalty or whatever. You got to be able to, hold to 3 points and not give up 7 in those situations every time. It's particularly the Lions game. It just felt like every time we're in one of those favorable situations, either we have a penalty that kind of equalizes it out, gives them a freebie, or a guy's just running wide open, or maybe we busted a coverage. Who knows what exactly it was that led to it. But we were in favorable situations at times, and we're still finding a way to not get off the field, and drives continue, and those generated points, those directly affect the outcomes of games. So I think it's just being more situationally aware, being able to take advantage of those opportunities. We get a team in third and 8, 9, 10 plus. Our ends got to be ready to go. We got to be getting some pressure. DBs should be competing knowing, hey, I'm good. If I give up 5 yards, I come up and make a tackle. We're off the field. We're good to go. Now, obviously, against the Lions, when they're going to go for it on every fourth down, we now have to, make one more stop. We can't let them go 4 for 5 on fourth down, but that's probably only like a Lions situation. So that's not going to apply to everybody. But we have to be better in those crucial situations. I think when you end up in a favorable matchup for whatever reason, you got to find a way to convert. They can't be converting the ones that are in your favor at a high rate. That doesn't look good. Those shouldn't even be 50-50. Those need to be 90-10, third and 10, third and 12 plus situations. You can't give those up. And then, who's to say if we didn't get one more stop on one of those fourth downs, who's to say we don't win that game? So we can step up in just those situations on top of just cleaning up the basic stuff, guys knowing where they need to be, executing their job, maybe getting a little more healthy. All of that coming together, that sounds like a win.
And really the only other thing that I would even hit on or stress beyond what you said is that 4 for 5 on fourth down. That to me, that's one of those situations when it comes to an NFL football game, to be exact. You just cannot allow a team to be that reckless and get away with it. We got the one, and it turned out to show what happens when you get a play like that should have never happened on his part. But this guy's down there basically playing with the ability for his team to win this game. I mean, he's going for it on 4th and goal and scoring. That just can't happen. I mean, especially when he's throwing that, like the one play was like throwing to the 3rd read. They're on like, what, a 2-yard line? How you get all the way through that many reads and a guy gets to be wide open down there in the goal line? That we have got to really button up and not allow for something like that to ever happen to us again. And the last piece of it where they really are showing a lack of respect for you was for him to go for it on that last one. Like, dude, like, you can kick the ball and take the lead. You're going to go for it, and you can be tackled and turn the ball over and let us drive down and win the game. We got to do that. We have to get that one. That, to me, is just one that you got to say, you're not going to give us this opportunity and succeed with that reckless of a coaching decision. So we really have to bow up in those instances and turn this thing around with things like that, because those are just not the types of things that really good coaches do. It just doesn't happen at this level. And if a coach does it, then we can't let them get away with it. It's time for us to step up in those types of moments. So moving forward, like we mentioned, we control our destiny as it relates to getting to the playoffs. Now, where we end up is going to be a matter of what some of these other teams do. And because we won't know if we end up tied, with Minnesota in the end, we don't know what their record is going to be at the end in terms of who they beat, who they lost to. So where the tiebreaker would be as to who would be 5, who would be 6. But outside of that, if we do what we need to do, we know that we cannot be lower than 6th. And we really need to get that as a definite, that we have no way whatsoever of falling to 7 or definitely not out of the playoffs completely. And that starts this week and with our matchup with the Seattle Seahawks. So offensively, now obviously they have as far as their pass defense, I think they're in the top 10 defense in terms of pass defense in the league. Look, Leonard Williams is playing his behind off. Like, I mean, he's playing an all-pro level this year. So there is going to be a defense across from us that's going to make us come and do what we should be able to do at a high level in terms of having to do it. Who or what in terms of the matchups that are most exciting for you in terms of this particular game?
I mean, I think I'm just interested to see what version of our offense comes to the table versus what version of Seattle comes to the table. I think Seattle has brought to some of their games, they've come out and they've competed. We saw what they did to the Jets after they started off down early. Leonard Williams sparked them with like a 90-something yard pick six return. And then they basically shut the Jets down for the majority of the rest of that game. I've seen games where the DBs out there have come to play. Witherspoon is a guy who finds a way to make an impact, whether it's outside corner covering, in the nickel, being physical, jamming guys up, playing in the run game, blitzing. He's a dynamic player, and he normally finds a way to make an impact. But at the same time, I've also seen games where, these guys are getting burnt. Guys are getting behind them. So it's going to be, can we take advantage? I think people said the last time Josh Jacobs played the Seahawks, he had like a 270-yard rushing game. So, they know about Josh. It's certainly not lost on the players who were there last time he played them what he did. Josh knows that as well. So Josh comes into this game. We need him to play a big factor. He's one of the best running backs in the league. He's been playing like it. Now is the time where those running backs really step up late in the year. As things get a little colder, guys don't want to hit sometimes. I can't relate, but there's plenty of guys who it gets a little colder. They don't want to make as much contact. Josh is one of the guys probably going to go search that out. So we'll see how that goes. That's the biggest thing for me. Can the O-line rebound? The second half last week they played better. but now they've gotten, 10 days of rest. Everyone should be ready to go. Can we kind of return to form to the O-line who's been pretty good for the majority of the season against the defensive front? They have some guys, like you said, Leonard Williams is a big-time player right now. Other than that, not a ton of marquee names up there up front for them defensively. And I know they've been doing a lot of shuffling at linebacker, releasing guys, trading guys, bringing new guys in. So we'll see how those guys can fit against a pretty complex run game that we have at times that's really been giving folks some headaches. And it's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, and I think the other guy up front, they traded for Ernest Jones. They brought him in. He's been a pretty decent player in his career thus far. This is his third team, so there's normally a reason why you would not still be on your first team, but he's been a pretty decent player. They have a rookie linebacker who, a couple of weeks ago, I think he had like 14 tackles, who's been playing pretty well. But like you said, Leonard Williams is the name up front. He's a guy that we'll have to know where he is. The secondary, it's been interesting in terms of how they are playing. Sometimes they actually travel. So we'll see. Is this going to be a week where we have Reek traveling with Christian? We know that when they go and we're playing in 11 personnel normally, Witherspoon is the guy who is going to go inside with the slot. That's going to present some matchups for our guys on the outside. And again, if we have Reek traveling, then that means that either Wicks or Rome are going to end up with a third or fourth type corner on them. You have to win that. You have to win that every time. That's not a guy who should be covering one of our top four guys. That just should not happen. And quite frankly, when we go man, all of our guys should be winning a lot of these matchups as well, because like you said, we've seen some very interesting stuff on film. I mean, we saw Demarcus Robinson literally win a game, catching a ball one-handed up the field on Reek in overtime. So look, we got to make them pay. If they have these lapses, we need to be the ones. We have the kind of firepower that can make these teams pay. And with a back like Josh Jacobs, who you're going to have your safeties pay attention to the run game, or he will run for 270 yards on you again. So all that complementary football, that all works together. And I think it's going to be important for us to come out the gate with our offense playing like we know they can play. As we flip it to the other side of the ball, look, Geno is he's one of those passers who he can get hot. I mean, he's a streaky passer who can be accurate, or he can throw it to you. But what we have not had is consistency. So from a matchup standpoint, what do you see?
I think the biggest thing for me, I really want to see, I mean, it's kind of cliche because I just said about the defense, but what Geno do we get? Like you said, he's extremely streaky. When he's feeling it, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league in terms of, pushing the ball downfield, getting his guys in open space. Jackson Smith and Jigba has played great this year. He's kind of taken that step that, most people thought he would take, and the reason he was drafted so high. And when DK's been healthy, he's been doing what DK does. Obviously, he's, a unicorn similar to Christian in terms of there just aren't guys walking around that are 6'4", 230 something, moving like that, and that are just a problem to handle, especially after the catch. They've got guys on the outside. Can their O-line hold up? Our performance last week in the first half was a bit of an anomaly. Their O-line tends to be just a flip of a coin. What are you going to get from them? Sometimes they're all right. So other times they're just, swinging gate. Guys are getting pressure on Geno, and obviously that makes things hard for him. I know it's, is Kenneth Walker going to play? He was out last week. Charbonnet had a massive day. So, if Kenneth Walker is out again, we know he's a pretty solid running back. We saw what Charbonnet did last week. Definitely can't let that guy come in and get going the way he did against the Cardinals. There's no reason for us to let that part of the game get going, and then things open up in the passing game for Geno as a result. So can we get some pressure on this O-line, make things hard for him? That'll be a big part of it, especially when you're having issues in the secondary. The best way to give guys help is to force the ball out of the quarterback's hands sooner than he'd like to. Gives guys like JSN less time to get open, because that's what they're so good at doing. They just find a way. So we'll see how that part pans out.
And the key is what we do, I believe, as a defense. Understanding where they're strong, where they have some deficiencies, and make sure that the way we come to play takes advantage of the deficiencies. This is not an offensive line that we need to make look like they're all pros across the board like we've done with some of these offensive lines. They have not been a top-notch line against many of the other teams. They don't need to be against ours. So this is where our front four guys, in which we have 2 premium paid guys on that front four, it's time to go to work. It's time to bring that lunch pail and get to work. As it relates to the skill guys, look, you mentioned it. JSN stepped his up. Lockett is kind of, I think, stepped back a little bit. Age might be catching up with him a little, but he's still solid. DK, we know who they are. Now it's time, though, because we knew who all of the teams are that we played before. And we can put together solid game plans and solid defense in order to take them away. This is a game. This is a time. We control the destiny moving forward, and our defense has to come to play because it's time. Got anything else for them?
It's a big matchup. This is going to go a long way in terms of where we're able to end up with our seeding. Obviously, we know this is a potential rematch in the playoffs if things were to kind of hold form to what they are now with the Seahawks leading in the West and us sitting there at 6. This would be the matchup. So if it's going to be you play them twice, you want to put it on them the first time, make them think they have no chance, and we walk back into their place in the playoffs with them being the division winner and them shaking in their boots. We'll see what happens, obviously, but it's time for us to take care of business, start playing some playoff football against a likely playoff team that we're going to be standing across from.
And I think those are the words. It's time. Let's go Packers. Let's go Packers Nation, because from this point forward, this is where you peak and you go into the playoffs hot. And this time, you don't stumble. Go all the way through February and hold up the trophy that we know we have the talent to be able to get. So it's Sunday at, I think, 8:20 p.m. We are the primetime game. All eyes on us. Sunday Night Football. Until then and until next time, go Pack, go.